Okay, one of the main things that students often say when they come to essays is that they have a lack of ideas, so they can't think of any ideas for their IELTS essay. So it's a common statement when they're preparing for the test, and this is where brainstorming and planning come in. Once you've analysed the question in the IELTS test, you need to brainstorm some ideas to include in your answer. Now this is a question we'll look at to illustrate this. So you can see the question is: the crime rate among teenagers has increased dramatically in many countries. Discuss some possible reasons for this increase and suggest solutions. And remember, you have to give reasons for your answer, include relevant examples. So brainstorming is an important part of the planning process. In order to get a good score, it's not enough just to put a list of ideas. You need to extend and explain those ideas. So you need just a few ideas that are explained properly, rather than lots of ideas that aren't explained. So if you look at the IELTS prompt, it says give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples from your own experience. So you need to make sure you do this. So for this question, you need to write about reasons for the increase in teenage crime and offer solutions. In order to make sure you fully answer the question, it's a good idea to develop some focus questions. So these are questions that will help you to focus on what you need to write. So you can do this for any type of essay. So these are possible focus questions for this essay question. So it's fairly simple. You just turn those points into questions. Why has teenage crime increased? What can be done about it? And you need to answer those. So let's look at some possible answers that have come up after somebody has brainstormed. So obviously you'd have your own ideas. But for example, you could argue that it's a breakdown. The crime has increased because of the breakdown in the nuclear family. There's a lack of things to do these days. The nuclear family is a term used to define a family group consisting of a pair of adults and their children, as opposed to single-parent families. What could be done about it? You could suggest what governments could do, provide better support for families and stricter punishments. However, you could say also individuals need to take responsibility for their actions. However, you now need to think about how you're going to extend and support those ideas you have brainstormed. In other words, you need to ask yourself further questions about each of your ideas. For example, looking at the point about the nuclear family, why has there been a breakdown in the nuclear family? What is the effect of this? Do you have an example of it? Answering questions like these will make sure you have a fully supported and explained essay. For example, let's look at some answers to some of those more detailed questions. So why has there been a breakdown in the nuclear family? You could just say there's been high divorce rates. What's the effect of this? There's no male role model in the family, so boys go astray and may commit crime. So when you've extended your main ideas, this then provides the basis for your plan. Here's an example of the brainstormed ideas with further support, which has now become the plan for the essay. So you can see why has teenage crime increased, and you can see those ideas that were brainstormed and the different types of support you've given those brainstormed ideas. And what can be done about it? So government provides support. So examples, giving more youth centres, sports activities. Parents should take responsibility, provide a loving environment, have a relative as a role model. So we'll now look at the essay. We'll only go through this quickly, but there's a link underneath this video where you can spend more time looking at the sample answer if you want to do that. So here's the introduction. So in the last decade, there's been a big rise in crime by teenagers. We need to establish why it's happened and the ways to solve it. And the reasons why are discussed in the first body paragraph. So you can see how your ideas you brainstormed have led to a well-organised and supported essay. So you've got the breakdown in the nuclear family due to high divorce rates. You get one-parent family, so there's no role model. This is important for boys particularly, as they may be more influenced by drugs and crime. The next idea you brainstormed, a lack of things to do for the young. So it mentions that television programs show that teenagers hang around in the evenings with little to do. This means they'll find their own entertainment, which could be crime. And then the solutions. So there are ways to tackle these problems. So we talked about the government first of all. They need to provide support. So for example, in building and staffing youth centres, which will provide guidance for young people and focus their attention on other things. But parents also need to be encouraged to take more responsibility for their children. So the onus lies on them to do this. And then we have the conclusion, which sums up the thesis and your main ideas. So to sum up, a common mistake is to have lots of ideas that are not explained properly. However, you can see that as a result of brainstorming some key ideas and making sure you've explained each of them, you have a fully supported and well-organised essay. So this is why it's so important to plan for your essay and to brainstorm. Don't forget we have a best-selling ebook which goes through all the steps in a really easy way to explain how to write an essay, how to plan, brainstorm, go through some grammar points. There's a link to that again at the bottom of the video. Thank you for listening.